Okay. That is the unfinished business. Again, yeah, that, I mean, right to that. We don't, okay, the bold items are, I'm taking those are the, and the question,
The yellow highlighted in the
Yeah.
survey tool. Trace, why did we yellow highlight those?
Because those questions were changed from the previous year's surveys.
Okay.
And we wanted to make sure that they weren't compared to anything from prior years because the question wording was changed.
Okay. All right, moving on.
One question, please.
Yeah.
Do you want us to remain then in unfinished business?
Yep.
Okay.
And you know, we may have another new commissioner on this body come February. Can't be January already.
Almost the end of January. Wow.
This month's going fast.
Crazy.
It is. I mean, just, you know, it's one of those things that just, you know, with 3 new members on this body this year, you know, it's something that we need to review those policies and take time to let everybody understand. Okay, and even, hey, January meeting, if this employee questionnaire is in there, and even if you put a copy of the question of the health officer evaluation to say, hey, this is what we're using, be prepared for this come August, you know, September. It's something to do. I just sat through 2.5 hours of Michigan Association of School Board training on the new superintendent evaluation process that we have to undertake. And in that process, the school board, you have to establish rules that the superintendent, or goals for the superintendent to meet as part of that evaluation process. And that's like meeting those goals is a 20 or 30% portion of their evaluation. But if you don't establish the goal, you can't truly evaluate the superintendent.
True. Yeah.
And they have to be known goals established at a public meeting. Yeah.
I'm assuming that that's probably how it goes with you as well. I feel like there's goals established or you're involved in helping set those or.
We do that internally as an administrative team, but it's not something we've ever had for discussion.
It's nothing ever.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, one of those things you look at in treating health, what's your goal? Treat fewer people?
Well, I mean, because there's obviously the health rankings is something that very important to the CHA, right? It's maybe there are some.
And very difficult to move the mark around.
Yes, very difficult,
So-
as we all know, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, those would be difficult goals to set and be certain of achieving. So if you wanted to say, you know, we were gonna ensure that 40% of the population in the 3 counties received influenza vaccine.
Right.
You know, you're battling an uphill climb here because there is a movement to not vaccinate, right? So yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean, it could center around targeted populations too, you know, vulnerable
Yes.
perhaps.
Yeah.
But I mean, if that's not been a practice, I mean.
I'm not saying it couldn't be. I'm saying that, you know, it would take some thought on, you know, how
I agree. And it's
schools.
achievable and meaningful as well. Right? I mean, you don't want to just throw goals out there just to say, hey, yeah, we want more people vaccinated.
Right.
To what end, right? I think
Well, it'd probably be the right end, but maybe impossible to achieve in our current climate.
Yep, I know what you're saying.
Anyway.
Oh.
So that's in there because we will have a new board chair this year, and we think we know who that's going to be. And he is not available February 26th. And I expect Commissioner House will not be either. However, hopefully our vice chair from Postal County will be and can run the meeting. But I think we just wanted to bring this schedule back up. And of course, without having our St. Joseph County representative yet, our second, well, really either, to be honest. Thought we should at least, bring it back up at the meeting next week.
That, and, we don't know, the committee meetings sometimes are more fluid, and if that date type still works for everybody, that's.
Yeah, we had done it at 8:30, this meeting at 8:30 in the morning for Rusty. So that,
From a staffing perspective, we would much prefer if finance and PPA were both on the same day. But we couldn't do that because we were trying to work around Commissioner Baker's schedule.
Finance pizza on what day?
generally on Monday.
And everybody wanted a morning meeting, so then and it's only one morning. Every day is only one morning. It's crazy.
And sometimes it comes way too early.
Yeah, sometimes.
Well, living on the eastern side of the district, like this morning I brought the main roads all the way here, at times it's a little rough to get up and get all the chores done in the barn before I have to leave to come this way, so.
Well, we could go to a Monday at 11 o'clock meeting.
No.
You guys. Which one?
No,
Wednesdays at 8:30, it'll probably be.
Well, I'm of the belief that the meetings should be as easy as possible for the staff to try to coordinate. I mean, that's what we try to do it anyway. So if it makes sense or if it's possible to get them on the same day, then I certainly would be good with that.
no, the only problem I say, you never know how long a meeting's gonna go. So if you have one committee meeting, pencil for an hour and then, if it's budget time or whatever and it takes a little longer,
Sure, the finance, I could see that.
yeah. Well, even, Program Policy and Appeals Committee can get quite entailed. Especially if we have an appeal, dealing with an appeal on an environmental health
Gotcha.
matter. Which, you could have the applicant, want to put a house in, we denied them septic permit, they're appealing that. Yeah. It can take some time.
Mhm.
Just looking here. This Commissioner, thinking about those meetings and for commissioner. First meeting, Commissioner Collins, we did some meeting at our board meeting yesterday and just making sure that those finance committee meetings, if he continues to serve on the finance committee, will work for him, so, okay. If you're going to Florida in the end of February, I think we can still handle it.
Not Florida, but
Arizona, going,
no, we're actually going to Rio. So further south.
Nice and warm. Sounds wonderful, actually.
all right, the next thing is the program of the personnel policy manual.
On page 9 is a summary of the page numbers where there is a proposed change. And you will note that these changes relate to the Sick Leave Act, mostly anyway, although the last one does not. And I'm not sure how you knowing that legislation was introduced on day 2. But we do have February 21st deadline, so.
Well, there's exactly what legislation introduced on day 1 in the Senate.
Well,
Those bills have not had anything done to them. The two House bills have had something done to them. There was a committee meeting on them yesterday.
Yeah, I heard about that. I talked to Jen actually.
There's another one tomorrow on those bills.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the best thing we could hope for probably is a delay in implementation of those.
How do you delay the implementation of that?
Right, but I think for
With-
the health department here, I think you
Yeah.
have to work it into the policies.
Now, the only comment that I would make is on I want a disclaimer here on the front of the change is not effective until February 21st, 2025, and will not take effect unless if there is other legislation passed affecting state
Sure.
statute.
And that makes sense, I think. I'm guessing that we would probably revisit this anyway. I mean, is
Yeah,
that what
right.
this would
But
be? This
our
was-
next meeting is not till the 27th after,
Sure.
The next full
Sure.
board meeting,
Right.
right,
so
is
you want
after.
it in there, Yeah. Yep. Yep, that makes sense.
Now, just for your knowledge, the agency's attorney did provide this language. So it's been, vetted by a legal
Good.
expert, and
It's good.
he says it's good. So we use Andrew Briggy. I don't know if you're familiar with his name. Okay. Some people are. Because he works for MMRMA.
Well, his firm's contractor or is hired by MMRMA for many of those defense cases that we find ourselves in at
Right.
counties. So,
Right. Okay.
so so I don't know, Teresa, where we put that. Maybe the heading.
Well, I think it just would go in motion. And then, it doesn't take effect until the 21st. And then only if, no other legislation, supersedes would be in the motion.
Other than the one thing does need to, I thought,
Yeah, it's on page 43 as the language that would change. That's not the,
that's not dealing with sick time.
yeah.
Did that come about from discussions at this committee before? Or?
No, this one came into effect because we had a miscommunication with a staff member. So back in the day, this agency did not pay out sick time when you left. And people were then taking all their sick time before they left so that, they wouldn't lose it.
Oh.
So the policy was introduced that if you left in good standing, you could get paid for up to 200 hours of sick time to entice people to actually work through their notices. And the language to leave in good standing required that you give at least a 2-week notice and that you work the entire notice period. What that did for us was it prevented people from giving a longer notice when they would retire. So we had a nurse that wanted to retire. She wanted to give us a 2-month notice, but when she found out that she couldn't take any days off after she put in the notice, she's like, well, then how am I going to have my house in Tennessee? How am I going to do that? And so we adjusted the language to say that it had to be, pre-approved days off were still okay during that notice period, because that gave the supervisor the authority to then approve a leave request if it was in a longer leave period. But the staff, the way it was currently written, the staff still didn't believe that if they put in a request, they thought their requests had to be put in before they gave their notice or they would not be approved. And so we have a staff member right now who's going to retire in February. Everybody knows she's going to be retiring in February, but she is not giving us her notice until 2 weeks. So we can't move forward with replacing or starting the interview process because she hasn't officially given us notice because she doesn't want to be penalized for the sick time.
Okay, so in that regard, I would like to see 2 changes to the program, to the personnel policy. And I'm gonna question you on this, Teresa, Because one of the things with this legislation or this sick time bill that is in effect right now is somebody cannot show up to work and they don't have to call you until it's reasonable accepted for them to notify you that they were sick. That's how the current language reads. So I wonder if even if this is acceptable underneath that current statute.
Well, Andy reviewed it.
Well, I don't think the statute requires us to pay out sick time if they leave. So I wouldn't think that it would have any effect on whether or not we pay out their unused sick time. Now, it may affect, can they use sick time in their last 2 weeks? It may affect that. But, I mean, if they use it, then they're going to forfeit their unused time.
Yeah, I think the statute would allow for them to use their sick time. I mean, they have to be able to use their sick time, even in that the resignation period or payment period or whatever it is. So,
but then they would not be leaving in good standing, so we would not have to pay them up to 200 hours of sick time if they used it in that period.
No.
We may not be able to trump the law. Is that what you're thinking?
that's what I'm thinking too.
And if memory serves me right, I think even reading the House bill and the Senate bill that's before the legislature right now, I think both of them preempt there's part of it right now, as it stands, there's no limit on the number of carryover hours that they can have. Well,
Right.
But if the legislation that's pending, if you pay out for unused sick time at severance, you can have a limit on carryover hours. So if that legislation is enacted, but we say, well, but if you use that during any of that during the time, then you don't get to, well, then wait a minute. They have unlimited sick time carryover.
They do, but we are limiting them in this language to the use of 263 hours a year.
Right, because you don't have to give them any more. They can carry it over, but they can't necessarily use it all.
Right.
Yeah. And my own concern potentially with this too is that they believe there's some language in there that talks about that if they use it, they can't be punished for using it necessarily. And I wonder if this maybe would feel like they're being punished for using their time.
Well, I can send this resignation in good standing stuff off to Andy and ask about that.
Ask more questions about how that
Yeah,
works. And
because I think, and again, it's really the stuff back in the sick time area that, is written there to make us compliant with the statute.
Mhm.
Yes.
Um,
And Andy did write that.
But I would say we only want that effective if there's no change to the statute before February 21st.
Agree with that too.
Okay, so do we move it forward with the changes except for the last one for now? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will entertain that. Yes,
I'll make that motion.
I'll support,
Teresa ordered that.
and Teresa's going to get legal counsel clarification on the fourth one, which depending on what Andy says, we can act on that at the Board of Health meeting, so. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, carried.
One clarification, I want to make sure I get it right. So we're moving forward the changes without the change that's on 34.
Correct.
And then we'll just add that to the next time after we get clarification.
And you added somewhere in there about the takes effect on the 21st.
Yep, got that. Okay, thank you.
Next up, Board of Health bylaws. Is there something we need to change here?
Nope, we just always review them in January.
Just curious about that too.
Um, so the board chair at the organizational meeting, the newly elected board chair will get to appoint the committee of the agency. I don't know if you noticed that it's on page 3.
I did review this. I was curious about that. So since the committees are meeting prior to the first board meeting, Jared kind of did that.
Did
Right.
temporary appointment.
Temporary.
Correct.
Okay, so
And-
after that, then.
See, and Jared is still technically the board chair until there's a new chair elected.
Right.
And we authorize, that would maybe be the only thing that we need to look at, maybe amending the bylaw for those situations in the future. We made a motion at our December meeting authorizing the chair to make those
Gotcha.
appointment if the committee needed to meet in January.
The other thing that could occur, and that I don't think it talks about or clarifies, is, what if Jared hadn't run for reelection?
Yeah, I was curious about
hadn't
that.
won.
Then the vice chair,
Okay, so that would work. But unless they both,
because Tom was the vice chair.
Tom was vice chair, yeah. So in this case, the chair's coming back. The vice chair not, but what if both of them didn't come back?
Right. Right. It's a good question. And I would say what would make the most sense is just to kind of carry over the assignments as they were, but obviously there's
Well-
a change too, right? That-
Well, and when I was elected chair, Jared was vice chair. I didn't want the chair and the vice chair on the same committee. Of the Board of Health, split them up, so. And then when I was the chair of the board, I actually asked Commissioner Matthew to be the chair of the Program Policy and Appeals Committee, so that. And Commissioner Hoffman, the banking experience, let him.
We had an interest, more of an interest in finance, right? So.
He likes it there.
So, but yeah, I guess that's something that we maybe need to look at. Because right in the past, when we've had a organizational meeting in January, the former board chair calls the meeting to order.
Mhm.
When you organize in January, your county clerk calls the meeting to order. Maybe we need to write into the bylaws that for that circumstance like that, that, the first meeting in January will be called to order by the health officer until there's an election of a new chairperson. That, because if Commissioner Hoffmaster, even if Commissioner Hoffmaster was not reappointed back to this body,
Right,
then we're without the chair and the vice chair from
right.
the last term.
So where would we put that?
Looks like it goes at the top of page 2. Because that section 3, article 4, section 3 talks about that.
So is it every 2 years this happens? Then? because it's 2-year appointments.
It's a 2-year appointment.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Does it say that? Does it say it's a 2-year appointment?
yes, we are a 2-year appointment. That's, I don't remember if that's in here or if that's in the joint operating agreement
I think
between.
it's in the joint operating.
That's,
agreement.
I know that's in the, because that's one of the things we had to have changed in the joint operating agreement. It was a 2-year appointment to commensurate with our term of office. Well, now we're, with the 4-year term of office, a 2-year appointment doesn't commensurate. I guess I would put that as, um, underneath 3, maybe do 4 on article 4 officers.
Yep.
Do section 4. And maybe just put in there, in the event that the chair and vice chair from the prior year do not return to the Board of Health, the organizational meeting, the health officer shall call the organizational meeting of the Board of Health to order and conduct business through the election of a new chairperson.
Sounds good.
Makes sense. Probably won't happen very often,
It probably won't. Probably may never happen.
right? I don't know that it ever has, but it could.
Well, again, something could happen and Jared's not appointed to the body next week.
It could happen. It's not done till Monday. Yeah.
Jared, if you're listening,
Yeah.
so, okay, and the board bylaws, any change that we make here has to be submitted to the board within 10 days prior to the meeting. So that will not be on our January agenda. That won't be on the agenda until February.
Really, 10 days?
That's amendment. Yeah.
Well, I'll,
Rules.
Robert's rules of order, Commissioner.
I'll put in the January packet and
Yeah.
then information.
Yep.
And then,
So we can actually see that in writing and see if we, Robert's rules of order generally requires a 30-day notice for bylaw change.
Really?
We just speed things up around here.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay. And we'll review that again at our next program policy and objectives committee meeting as full business. Moving forward. Year of service anniversaries.
Yeah.
Your recognition. Congratulations to both of you.
Yeah. We've been waiting for those announcements,
Now,
milestones.
it was it sometime during the year, this last year,
I
then?
was October. Yeah. October of 94. Yeah. I was October of 94. What were you?
August, I'm fine, 99.
Well, yeah.
Very last day of August.
Well, thank you to you both for your years of service, but Lee's got you beat.
He
Yes,
absolutely
He
does.
is.
And Candy has us both. Candy's been here almost twice as long as I have. He's been like 44 years.
Really?
She started when she was a baby.
Yeah.
Come on now.
She loves it here. So does Lee.
Obviously.
So what department is Lee in?
Environmental health in Three Rivers. Actually,
And Joe's,
Joe's, of
Here.
course, our EH director now. Lisa Palmer's a nurse in Hillsdale. Annalisa is an environmental health sanitarian in Hillsdale. And Josh is a health educator stationed here in Coldwater.
here's and what are we, 70 employees?
76.
So we will have a certificate for you to sign. I'm assuming it'll be you.
And 11.
And 11. We don't bring them because it would be a significant time commitment to bring them here just for the meeting. So we recognize in the meeting, the meetings are recorded. If they want to watch it, they can.
I mean, that's 10% of our staff that 5 years or more of service. Right there. Roughly, you know. We're just under it, we're at 76, but yeah, 7.
I would imagine the retention's pretty good around here, I think.
You know,
Certain positions.
Certain positions more so than others. Although
I think I did the math the last.
you had a spreadsheet. that
I
you
did. I did it for the last meeting because Brent had asked me to put it together, and
Was
I think
in
it
the
was like
meeting?
23% of the staff has been here for 5 years.
It was it in the packet?
No,
Oh, okay. Just information.
but I.
So do we do these all at a single meeting, or do we do them as their anniversary comes up?
Just in January of every year.
Yeah.
Once a year.
That finishes our agenda. Do we have any other public comment? Seeing none. Our next Board of Health meeting will be February 20, or full board meet January 23rd. Our next Program Policy and Appeals Committee meeting will be February 19th. Meeting will stand adjourned.